Have you ever been told to eat more fruit because it's always good for your health? Most of us believe that, especially when it comes to joint pain or arthritis. Fruits are packed with vitamins, antioxidants, and fiber, so they must help, right? But what if I told you that one very popular fruit, one you might eat often, and even give to your parents every morning, could actually make your joint pain worse? And not because of the fruit itself, but because of the way it's eaten. This idea might seem strange. We're used to thinking of food as either good or bad. But when it comes to bones and joints, especially in older adults, the truth is often more complicated. Many people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s struggle with joint inflammation, morning stiffness, or swelling that just won't go away. And while they try to eat healthy, sometimes a small detail, like how a fruit is prepared or when it's eaten, can quietly make things worse. The surprising part? Most doctors won't bring this up unless you ask. It's not because they're hiding anything, but because when it comes to inflammation and arthritis, nutrition is often overlooked. And yet, small habits like this can affect the pain you feel every day. That's what we're going to talk about today. Now, before we go too far, let me be clear, the fruit we're talking about is not some rare or exotic one. It's something you see at nearly every breakfast table. Sweet, refreshing, full of fiber. In fact, it's often the first fruit people switch to when they try to eat clean. For many older folks, it's part of a routine, peeled, sliced, maybe eaten raw on an empty stomach with a cup of tea. It sounds harmless. But depending on how your joints are doing, that habit might not be so gentle. Let me tell you a quick story. My neighbor, Mr. Carl, is 68 years old. He's the kind of man who takes pride in doing things a natural way. No pills unless absolutely necessary, walks every morning and watches what he eats. About a year ago, he started getting more stiffness in his fingers, especially when waking up. He thought maybe it was the weather or just aging, but then his knees started swelling after evening walks. He even noticed the joints in his toes felt like they were throbbing for no reason. His doctor said it was mild osteoarthritis. Nothing alarming yet. But here's what got me thinking. Nothing else in Carl's lifestyle had changed, except one small thing. His daughter had recently convinced him to start every day with a bowl of fresh fruit. And his favorite? Oranges. Not just one slice. He would eat an entire orange every morning, peeled by hand, usually before breakfast. Now don't get me wrong, oranges are packed with vitamin C, and that's good for your bones and cartilage. But there's a detail here that matters more than people think. Citrus fruits like oranges are high in natural acids, especially when eaten alone on an empty stomach. For someone with already inflamed joints, especially in arthritis, this can trigger more sensitivity. Not in everyone, but in enough cases that it's worth paying attention. You see, when citrus is consumed without food, say, first thing in the morning, it may spike certain inflammatory responses in sensitive people. The citric acid, combined with natural fruit sugars like fructose, can lead to short-term acidity in the body's tissues. And while our bodies are designed to handle pH balance well, people with joint issues often already have higher baseline inflammation. That makes them more reactive. In some studies, especially those looking at patients with rheumatoid arthritis or gout, citrus fruits have shown to occasionally flare up symptoms. Not because of the fruit itself, but because of the timing and the state of digestion. Carl didn't want to believe it at first. How can a fruit be bad, he asked. And I get it. We've all been told for decades to eat more fruits and vegetables. But once he stopped eating the orange first thing in the morning and instead switched to having it with his lunch, after some protein or healthy fat, the stiffness in his fingers noticeably improved. Within a month, he told me his joints felt quieter. That's the word he used. Not cured, but less irritated. This doesn't mean oranges are bad. The same goes for grapefruit, lemon water, and even pineapple, another tropical fruit that's often praised for its anti-inflammatory enzyme, bromelain. But again, it depends on how your body reacts. Pineapple, when eaten in large amounts on an empty stomach, especially for those with sensitive joints or stomach lining, can cause discomfort or increase inflammation, especially canned pineapple in syrup, which is added sugars that definitely don't help. And that brings us to another important point. Sugar. Natural sugar from fruit is still sugar. When you have arthritis, osteoarthritis, or other degenerative joint conditions, your body's ability to process sugars efficiently is already compromised. Add that to a naturally acidic fruit, and you might be unknowingly feeding the fire. A good friend of mine, Linda, 63, used to make herself a smoothie every morning. Bananas, pineapple, and a bit of orange juice. It tasted great, and she thought it was doing wonders for her digestion. But she couldn't understand why her knees felt puffy all the time. When she swapped the smoothie for a warm bowl of oats with cinnamon and a side of steamed apple, the difference shocked her. "I still eat fruit," she said, "just not all blended in first thing." Now, this isn't about blaming fruit. It's about respecting timing, quantity, and your body's condition. As we get older, the digestive enzymes in our gut change. The way we metabolize acids and sugars changes. And most importantly, our inflammation response becomes more sensitive. What might have been fine in our 30s suddenly becomes a silent trigger in our 60s. But it's not all bad news. When fruits are eaten with balanced meal, say alongside a boiled egg, a slice of whole grain toast, or a few almonds, their sugars absorb more slowly, the acids dilute better in the stomach, and the impact on joints becomes far less aggressive. In fact, some fruits, when timed correctly, can even help reduce inflammation. Cherries, especially tart cherries, have shown promising results in clinical studies for reducing arthritis-related pain. Blueberries, rich in antioxidants, are another quiet hero. The real danger comes when we blindly follow healthy habits that don't match our current needs, especially the habit of juicing. Concentrated fruit juice removes the fiber and delivers a huge hit of sugar and acid all at once. For someone struggling with joint inflammation, that's a recipe for more swelling. I remember a small moment from last spring. My wife and I were visiting her aunt who's 72, lives alone, and still insists on making everything by hand, even her juice. She offered us fresh orange juice with breakfast, and I politely declined. When she asked why, I gently told her I don't drink fruit juice on an empty stomach anymore. Her reaction was classic, a mix of surprise and disbelief. "It's just orange juice," she said. "It's not soda." That's the trap, isn't it? We've been told natural equals good, and usually it does. But even natural foods, if taken at the wrong time or in excess, can tip the balance, especially when it comes to inflammation. It's not just what you eat, it's when and how you eat it. Juicing, particularly citrus fruits, removes the fiber that helps slow absorption. That means all the sugar and acid hit your bloodstream fast. The sugar causes a spike in blood glucose, and the acid increases gastric acidity, both of which can indirectly stir up inflammation, especially in joints already sensitive from arthritis, old injuries, or wear and tear. Some researchers believe that elevated post-meal glucose levels can stimulate inflammatory pathways in the body, a theory that explains why many arthritis patients report pain flares after sweet drinks, even natural ones. But let's take it back to the daily experience. Think of how most people over 50 begin their morning. A quick coffee, maybe a slice of toast, and a glass of juice. It feels healthy. But for someone with worn cartilage, low bone density, or inflamed joints, this might be the worst time for acidic, sugary foods. Their stomach is empty. Their blood sugar is low. Their joints may already be slightly swollen from nighttime stiffness. Adding a fruit juice or acidic raw fruit to that mix, it's like knocking on a bruised door. Now, this doesn't mean older adults should avoid fruit altogether. Not at all. But the body handles fruit very differently when it's eaten alongside a protein-rich or fiber-rich meal. Imagine having a few orange slices after a plate of boiled eggs or some pineapple as dessert after grilled chicken. That's a completely different internal response. The proteins and fats slow down digestion. The fiber helps regulate sugar absorption. And the stomach's acidity has already been buffered by the main meal. In that setting, even a citrus fruit can be refreshing and useful, not inflammatory. Let's talk about bananas for a moment. Many people assume bananas are safe and gentle. For most, they are soft on the stomach, easy to digest, full of potassium. But here's the twist. Very ripe bananas, especially eaten alone, are high in fructose and can spike insulin. If your joints are already inflamed or you have prediabetes, which many older adults unknowingly do, This can worsen systemic inflammation. That's why combining a banana with plain yogurt or adding it into oats is better than eating it solo first thing in the morning. There's also the temperature of fruit to consider. Cold fruit from the fridge, especially citrus, may shock the digestive system when eaten first thing in the day, especially in people with poor circulation or weak digestion. This, in turn, can affect how nutrients are absorbed and may aggravate underlying inflammation, especially in joints prone to stiffness or swelling. It sounds like a small thing, but for someone whose knees already ache when the weather changes, these details add up. Another mistake I see often, especially with well-meaning caregivers, giving the elderly large servings of tropical fruit, thinking they're doing good. Watermelon in summer, mango slices, papaya. These fruits are delicious, yes, but some are high in natural sugars and have a strong cooling effect in traditional medicine, which might feel fine in hot climates, but not always ideal for people with weak digestion or chronic joint pain. Too much cold in the gut, as some older cultures believe, can lead to cold in the joints. Modern medicine may not use those exact terms, but we do know that poor digestion, combined with sugar overload, increases systemic inflammation. And then there's the overlooked villain, dried fruits. Raisins, dried mango, dates. They look small, but they're highly concentrated in sugar. Just a handful can contain the same sugar load as a full glass of juice. Without the water and fiber from the original fruit, your body gets all the sugar and very little of the benefit. For someone managing arthritis or osteoporosis, especially postmenopausal women, this sugar spike can be a quiet enemy, gradually increasing inflammatory markers and accelerating joint breakdown. I spoke to a retired nurse recently. She's 66, lives nearby, and still walks 2 miles every day. But she had a nagging pain in her hips that wouldn't go away. Her labs were normal. Her diet, she thought, was perfect. But after a deeper chat, she mentioned that she always snacked on dried apricots before her walk. Gives me energy, she said. But that quick sugar spike, day after day, was likely not helping her inflammation. She replaced the dried fruit with a boiled egg and half banana, and within 2 weeks, the hip pain had reduced, not disappeared, but noticeably eased. Sometimes, small swaps matter more than big changes. So what does all this mean for you? If you're over 50 and worried about your joints, it means paying attention to the subtle details. Are you eating fruit raw, on an empty stomach, straight from the fridge? Is it part of a balanced meal or a solo snack? Are you overdoing high fructose fruits like grapes, mangoes, and ripe bananas? Are you juicing instead of chewing? None of these habits are bad on their own, but in the context of aging bones and inflamed joints, they can add friction, and friction, when repeated daily, turns into pain. The beautiful thing is, you don't have to stop eating the fruits you love. You just have to rethink when and how you eat them. That's the secret most people miss. And it's not just about joints. It's about energy, digestion, and quality of life. I once had a neighbor, Mr. Carlton, a quiet man in his early 70s who'd always take a walk with his thermos of hot water and a small bag of grapes. He'd say, "This is my secret for staying young." But over time, he started complaining about swelling in his knuckles. First, he thought it was just old age. Then maybe the weather. He never thought it might be the grapes, those tiny, sweet things he ate a full bag of every afternoon. Here's what we sometimes forget. The fruit itself isn't evil. Grapes, for example, are full of antioxidants, especially the skin. But when you eat too many, especially if you're sedentary or insulin sensitive, that sugar builds up and becomes fuel for inflammation. In Mr. Carlton's case, the problem wasn't the fruit. It was only fruit every day in excess and without any balance. That's the perfect recipe for joint discomfort, especially in the hands and knees, where arthritis tends to settle with age. The reason this matters so much, especially for folks over 50, is that our ability to regulate sugar and inflammation declines. You might have gotten away with snacking on fruit bowls in your 30s, but now your pancreas is slower, your digestive system more sensitive, and your cartilage less forgiving. What once was just a banana and a smoothie now has a stronger impact. And it's not just about sugar. Certain fruits contain compounds called salicylates, natural chemicals also found in aspirin. In some people, These can trigger mild allergic-like reactions, including joint pain, especially if consumed in large quantities. Apples, grapes, oranges, and berries are among the highest in these. That doesn't mean you should fear them. But if you're eating these daily and notice unusual flares in your joints, it might be worth rotating fruits or taking a short break to see if symptoms ease. Let me take a moment to talk about how fruit works in the bigger picture of meal composition. In traditional eating cultures, like in parts of Asia and the Mediterranean, fruit is rarely a meal on its own. It's used as a finish or eaten with something else. That's key. When you eat fruit with protein, like an egg, yogurt, or even a handful of nuts, your body has more tools to process the sugar slowly, reduce blood sugar spikes, and keep inflammation at bay. A friend of mine, Grace, who runs a Tai Chi class for seniors, made a simple change that helped several of her students. Instead of offering fruit slices before class, she began providing small rice cakes with almond butter and a few apple slices. Just that tiny protein-fat pairing reduced the complaints of post-class joint soreness that some of the ladies had. It's not magic. It's science. Slow digestion equals lower inflammation equals calmer joints. We also need to rethink the evening snack. Many older adults, especially those who wake up stiff, eat something light and healthy before bed. Often, it's a bowl of melon, some berries, or dried fruit. But here's what's happening behind the scenes. Sugar from fruit, especially at night, raises blood sugar just before sleep. If your insulin is already sluggish, that sugar stays elevated longer. High nighttime blood sugar has been linked to poorer sleep quality and higher inflammation overnight, which means you wake up tired and sore. Instead, think warm, think soothing. A small handful of walnuts and half a pear, or better yet, a bit of cooked fruit like stewed apples with cinnamon, gentle on the gut, rich in anti-inflammatory compounds, and much easier on your overnight blood sugar. These little things matter more than we think. Now let's go back to one last misunderstood fruit, tomatoes. Yes, tomatoes are technically fruits. And yes, they're often flagged in arthritis discussions. The reason? Tomatoes contain a group of compounds called alkaloids, particularly solanine, which in some sensitive people can trigger joint pain. There's no conclusive evidence that tomatoes cause arthritis, but for people who already have joint degeneration or autoimmune inflammation, eating raw tomatoes frequently may irritate symptoms. But here's the interesting part. Cooked tomatoes, like in sauces or soups, tend to be much gentler and actually deliver more lycopene, which is anti-inflammatory. So again, it's not don't eat tomatoes. It's know your body and choose how you eat them. For someone with sensitive joints, a fresh tomato salad might hurt, but a warm tomato broth might soothe. It's all context. This entire conversation comes down to a principle most of us weren't taught growing up. Food is more than nutrition. It's also timing, pairing, and quantity. A fruit in the morning on an empty stomach may be harsh, but that same fruit with a balanced breakfast may be healing. Cold fruit may shock digestion, while room temperature fruit may calm it. Raw fruit may trigger discomfort, but gently cooked or blended into a meal, completely different experience. This is why older adults, and those who care for them, must learn not only what to eat, but how to eat it. Because joints don't just suffer from overuse, they suffer from internal chemistry. And chemistry is deeply tied to food. Now, you don't have to become a nutritionist overnight. No one's asking you to chart every gram of fructose. But think back over your day. Are you eating fruit alone? On an empty stomach? Right before bed? Or is it part of a nourishing balance plate? You might not feel the difference tomorrow. But a few weeks of smart fruit habits, that's where the joints begin to tell a different story. When I look at my own parents now in their 70s, I've noticed how much calmer their mornings are since switching their routine. They no longer reach for cold orange juice. They start the day with a warm breakfast, a walk, and fruit only after. Their joint pain hasn't vanished. But the sharp flares? Fewer and farther between. That's what we aim for, not perfection, but progress. And for everyone watching, that's the message I hope stays with you. Not fear, not restriction, just awareness. And gentle shifts in habit that protect the joints you still have and nourish the bones that hold you up each day. You know, we often think that joint pain is just a part of aging. that sore knee in the morning, the stiff fingers after folding laundry, the aching back after a simple walk around the block. And yes, some of that is natural. The body wears down over time. But what we forget is that how we age is often shaped by small, daily choices. What we eat, when we rest, how we move, and yes, even how we eat something as innocent as fruit. The most powerful moment is when we realize that inflammation isn't just something that happens. It responds to us. It listens to how we treat our bodies. If we flood our system with sugar before bed, it reacts. If we support it with balanced meals and good habits, it calms down. That's the quiet truth no one told us when we were younger. We're not powerless. We're in conversation with our health every day. I want you to think about someone you love. A parent, a spouse, a friend who can't garden anymore because of joint pain. Maybe it's even you. Now imagine if one or two small changes, like eating fruit at the right time or a parent with protein, could ease that pain even just a little. Wouldn't that be worth trying? This video wasn't meant to scare you away from healthy food. Fruit is still one of nature's best gifts. But like anything, it can become harmful if used the wrong way, especially as we get older. So I encourage you, don't throw out bananas or berries. Just learn their language. Eat them wisely with care, and let your joints breathe a little easier. And if this helped you, even just one part, please share it with someone you care about. A sibling, a neighbor, your parents. Because sometimes the simplest ideas are the ones that make life better. One meal at a time, one gentle choice at a time.